Real quick, my name is Todd McCree. I have installed 3 water harvesting systems myself on my own property and my in-laws' property. I have also consulted with the Baltimore City Orchard Project and installed one for them. And I've also consulted with and installed, or consulted, done a design and will be installing one this coming spring, so that was not completely done yet.
And I'm Tim Nye. I've done 2 home systems, really, is the extent of mine. We really messed around with the last house. We were in there for 6 years. We did a whole bunch of different 55-gallon drums, rain catchment, and then we did this IBC Tote version at the new house.
And Sean over here is he's kind of in the planning stages. Actually, I'll let you.
Well, I'm building a new house and been working on this, got it all planned out, so I can throw in some ideas on what I've found for new construction at least.
So he's done a lot more stuff with regards to regs and regulation, as well as plumbing it into a house. Neither Tim nor I actually have it plumbed into a house. We're using it for agricultural purposes. So we have some slides up here. Like I said, we just put these together on the fly in the course of, well, started last night. You started emailing me some pictures and we kind of cobbled it all together. So it's not going to be true production quality here, but this is what we're going to be covering. So let's move on to the first one here. We're talking about rainwater harvesting. Rainwater harvesting is not just pulling water out of a gutter system. So what you see up here are slides from the Swale Fest, as it was called, at Elijah Springs Farm in West Virginia. And I was actually one of the woofers out there that helped put this together. And we used a 2-bottom plow, and using the 2-bottom plow was actually Nick Ferguson's design or idea about using the plow to just flip dirt over to the downhill side. And then we came back in and we groomed it. And actually, while we were there that weekend, we had some of the Zello folks come up and we planted 5,000 trees into it. The day before the Zello guys came up, we had a big rainstorm and we actually started to fill the swale up, so that was cool. So this is one way of water harvesting. There's a lot of different ways to water harvest. What the majority of this presentation is going to be about is actually harvesting it in a water storage container, pressurizing it and using it for something.
Nick, how did the Elijah Springs swale end up? I mean, I don't know if we've ever seen the later year product.
It worked great.
So how deep were those swales?
They were only about 4 to 6 inches deep.
Really? It looks okay. So did you do that with 1 pass or 2 passes per swale?
Passes.
2 passes in the same row?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you don't have
it was 1 pass, and then you just
move over a little
follow the tractor tire in the next.
I didn't know if you were doing it like similar to like whenever you're actually plowing a field, or if you were just like going down deeper in the same.
So what it did is it cut this way and this way. So the front, we offset the blades.
Yeah.
So it cut here and here.
Yeah,
so it threw it down, and then you ended up with a little ditch.
Okay.
That the front tire just sit right in perfectly, and when that plow bit in, it pulled over. You know, you've got sway in your 3-point attachment.
Yeah.
It pulled over as far as it could go because it's both of the blades are pushed in the same direction now, and it pulled over like that, and it just grabbed the material that was left, and it flipped it all over and just left a clean ditch. Wow. It just slick.
Yep. So the only thing we had to do was groom the downhill side here just to mount it over. We used a rogue hoe, kind of broke it up and leveled it all out. We did not compact it though. You want to leave it loose. So, and you can see up here there were actually 3 individual runs of swales on the upper section. We planted 5,000 trees that weekend. What they did, it was either 3 to 1 or 5 to 1. It was Chinese chestnut, and then they put an American chestnut in. And I talked to Charlie the following year, and all the American chestnuts had died. The Chinese chestnuts, they had at least a third of them made it. And they way overplanted, a lot closer than they figured, because they knew that they would have some losses, but they were very happy with the way it worked out. Yep.
So component overview, we've done a couple of different designs, but actually looking at it, we did a lot of PVC piping. My stuff, I mean, I just kind of had an idea in my head. and drew it out. I found a spreadsheet online. I was digging around for it today. I can't find it on my phone, you know, just poking around at Google. But did a first flush system, and everything is dry fit, except you'll see in a couple later slides, the bottom is resting on a couple of cinder blocks. You know, 7.5 gallons of water has some weight to it. So just with a dry fit system, you want to make sure you're supporting it.
Is that Schedule 80?
Yeah.
What
climate do you have these?
I just, whatever I can pick up in the store.
Schedule 80 or Schedule 40?
It would be Schedule 80 probably, right?
I think so.
And
This is Home Depot,
breaks down.
you know. I sourced it all at Home Depot.
Schedule 40 is what they keep in the racks. You'd have to get, like, you'd have to go find 80.
Schedule 80, I think, is the expensive stuff you have to bring up through concrete. So
Oh yeah.
What's in the racks, they don't do for Schedule 40, and they've got pressure and
I did the
non-pressure.
same thing. I went to Home Depot and Lowe's, and I got the cheapest stuff I could get, just off the
It's
shelf.
much lighter. It's not like your sewage. The rainwater stuff's really thin.
I didn't use the really thin stuff. There was some like gutter runoff and stuff, and then there was the next level of that. And now I used the thicker stuff.
So, although there's 3.5 systems here, if you will, because this system up here is really an expansion of this one. We took the IBC totes out and added 1,550 gallon tanks. This one has one IBC tote, 2 IBC totes. This one's 4. Then we went up to 1,500 gallon. They all, plumbing wise, have the same mechanisms to them, even though you had done one and I had done a couple of the others here, which is we come off of the gutters, we go into what's called a leaf eater, then we go into a first flush system, then we go into some kind of a storage tank, and then we have plumbing on the bottom side, and we pressurize it, and the remainder of the slides, or the majority of them, are breaking each of these individual pieces into what their function is and why we have them. So the first thing is figure out how much storage capacity you need based on your needs, really. And the formula is basically the square footage of your roof times the amount of rain times 0.623. So an example is my roof of the garage that you had seen, the cream colored garage there, had 1,224 square feet total times, I figured 3/4 of an inch of rain. And the calculation would be 1224 times 3/4 of an inch times points. So I get 571, almost 572 gallons of water off of 3/4 of an inch of rain. So I would almost fill 2 IBC totes with 3/4 of an inch of rain. So that's a lot of water.
Yeah, my impetus for all this is we get a real bad dry season usually in the middle of summer. So I'm trying to capture every bit of rain I can as I build up the rest of my systems. So that when you start running numbers like this, I mean, we've had a couple of rain events where we've had over 6 inches of rain at one shot. It's an enormous amount of water, you know, and it's not a big roof either.
So those, I had 4 IBC totes in my first system, and I was happy. I filled it up with a couple of inches of rain. And then we hit July 4th, and we didn't see rain again until after October. And I emptied that 1,200 gallons in August. So in 1 month it was gone because I was feeding a plant propagation bed for one of my businesses, and I was also feeding or watering the food forest because, again, we were in drought. And I realized that was not enough, and that's when I pulled the 1,200 gallon worth of IBC totes out, and I put in the 1,550 gallon tanks each. And I have 2 of them in right now with a 3rd one that I'm adding. And we'll get into where to buy some of those and how to get them a little cheaper.
Have you had a rain event to fill those bigger tubs yet?
In Labor Day, I was down to, I had them full, and I was extending them over the summer, and we had a dry spell. So Labor Day, they were down to, I was maybe a foot off the bottom. I had just a couple hundred gallons. And we had a rain event come by, and I filled it up in 1 weekend. So I got 3,000 gallons off my garage in 1 weekend, and that has taken me all the way through. And we actually had a rain 2 weekends ago, and tonight we're going down into the teens. So I had to run out there the night before I flew out here and open up the valve and dump 3,000 gallons of water out. So I eventually plan on having a swale at the end, so I'll take that and feed it into ponds and do all kinds of stuff. But I'm not quite that far along in my homestead. But yes, I have filled it up, and it's amazing.
Were you concerned about the whole tank or just watering the lines?
So I was mainly concerned about watering the lines because I do have a ball valve shut off, and we'll see all that in a minute. But even just a foot before I get to that, I'll shatter that, and I'm going to discuss shattering and winterizing here in a little while.
Can we just talk real quick? If some of us are seeing like 2 seasons, just rain, then nothing for months. I have 4 harvesting collections, but it's more for emergency in the winter. You just almost described my scenario where, great, you have it, you're rain, you're collecting, and then it doesn't rain for a few months. You're going to empty your 1,000 gallons. Quick,
I'll share with you. There's an online spreadsheet
Yeah.
where you can put in monthly use and then your average rain in inches per month, and it'll tell you how many gallons of storage you need to make sure you never hit zero.
That's what I was looking for, actually, because it's got the first flush calculations in it.
Yeah.
Texas has a go to Texas A&M if you're in Texas.
Yeah.
Texas A&M, it has an awesome. They'll do all the calcs. They'll tell you how much rain that you're going to average over any given time. They've done some really good work.
So up and down the East Coast and Texas and basically the southern area, we have a very, very wet spring. And if you can gather enough and store enough, that'll get you through the worst part of the summer, as long as you calculate it right. Usually we start raining again in the fall. So there are areas, and this is not applicable to everywhere, but in the fall and the winter, I don't have to worry about watering. I drain everything, and I don't water again from about October, November until the following spring, and by then it's rainy season again, and I'm collecting. So you're in Oregon, is it?
Yeah, I'm in Oregon, and it literally just starts raining in October, stops in June, and then it's nothing until October.
So this is a beautiful system for you because you can start collecting in March. You don't have to worry about freezing or anything else. Just make sure your size is big enough to carry you through based on what your water needs.
But at worst case, you've just added 1,000 gallons or whatever of water that you don't have to buy or pump out of your well.
Yeah. I literally, it's used for the horses. So if our power goes out, we got a week's worth of water for the horses, and I got enough water to flush the toilets. That's why I'm using it right now.
Yep.
The next one. Okay, so we're going to start with the rain hits the roof, goes to the gutters. Your first line of defense on cleaning things up is to prevent sticks and leaves and other large crap from going into your system at all. And the best way to do that would be to keep it out of the gutter. They have gutter guards and all. If not, then you go to a gutter strainer, as it's called. This is like a $1.39 at Lowe's, or you just shove it in your downspout hole itself and it prevents stuff from going down. It works.
I've got them on my home downspouts. They do clog eventually,
Yeah.
but
they clog up high in the gutter where you can reach up there and clean it out versus in a pipe where you have to dismantle stuff.
yeah.
I found that if you wrap a window screen around that and stick it in, it works better. It also keeps lizards out.
Okay.
Which sucks when you have a first flush and you take the cap off and you have a couple, who knows how old lizards fall off the bottom.
Well, actually, we're going to cover that on the next slide here. Oh, actually, we're not.
The leaf eater.
So this one is for the folks that freeze, like in my area in Zone 7. So I have got to winterize my system or I'm going to burst pipes. And the easiest way to do that is to have basically the gutters up here. It comes in and it's a Y connector. And you can see right here, it's a switch. And what I have is when I'm off to the left, that means I'm flowing off to the right. And that's during the summertime, that's where I'll put my rainwater harvesting system. I will flip the switch over here to the right in the winter time, and at that point, I just use a regular gutter or go off somewhere else, and it totally avoids the rainwater harvesting system, so I don't have to worry about putting water in there. That is $30.75. If that is too much, if you look at that as a waste of money, you could go up there and you can just disconnect and use a screwdriver and reconnect and whatever. For me, especially this past weekend when I went out there the night before I was flying out here, it was easy just to flip it over, drain everything, and do a couple other things instead of getting up on a ladder and reconfiguring stuff. So
Why
I
not
like
just leave
the
your
ease of
collection
this.
tank open so that anything that comes down then flows on out?
You're going to see when we get to the plumbing that and the first flush and everything else, that's not possible because you're going to get water in the first flush. You're going to get water, residual water somewhere during a freeze or when you're halfway through, because a lot of times we'll start out with rain, then we'll go to freezing rain, then we'll go to snow, then we'll go to full-on ice, and it's in various different stages of your system.
But I mean, your
It'll
storage
burst.
tank is not going to be full. It's just going to, because you already had it emptied, and now it's just going to have a little bit in it.
So my issue is not the storage tank at all, because these polyethylene tanks, they can handle it.
Right.
They're meant to handle it. It's all the plumbing that is connecting everything together. That's what I'm concerned.
The weak link.
Yeah, that is the weak link.
It seems if it was all open.
That would require me to disconnect everything and leave it totally open, which, again, I don't want to do that. I have all kinds of other critters out there that would go in there. Pardon me?
Too much work.
Too much work. I'm looking for ease. That's easy.
There you go.
So are the leaf catchers. So I bought a big leaf eater. I just opened it up. I actually expected a bigger drain on the gutters on my roof because I'd never really opened it up, and it was like a 4-inch square downspout. But pulling it off the thing, it's your standard size hole coming out of the gutter. So I bought this huge leaf eater. It's like 14 inches wide at the mouth. Wow. So it would handle quite a bit more flow than I'm going to see come through that little hole. But all that debris, I've got a big oak tree kind of hanging over this area, so I've got leaf and twig debris all over the place. So that'll shed all that stuff off, and then the stand down below, it's just all loose fit coming out the bottom of it. So if anything happens or knocks it, it's going to all fall off and not ruin my garage.
There's a product on Amazon where it attached to the bottom of your gutters, and it's just like a bigger funnel. So you just tack it up there, and so you basically cut a hole in your gutter, like about 4 inches by 9 inches, 8 inches. So instead of having that little hole, whether it's the 2x3 or the 4-inch, it just opens it up. Now, I don't care if leaves go down.
Yeah, and for us, it's going to hit these leaf guards,
Yeah.
and it's going to shed right off.
But it's on Amazon. They're pretty cheap. They're $5.95. The shipping is flat rate, so however much you order. I put them in all my gutters, and I put big 4-inch ABS on all my downspouts, and all right.
No more clogs.
Yeah, verdig's up for it this second.
Yeah, and yours is a smaller version of what
So the point is that he and I have the same system. There are other systems out there that you'll see if you search around on YouTube. I got mine from Amazon. The cost for this was $35.95. It has a lot of features to it, like you say, loose fit, but you can just pop the top right here. The screen comes out, so if it gets clogged up with pollen or something, you rinse it off, put it back on.
Yeah.
His is much larger than that. Yours is metal. Mine is all plastic, so I'm guessing yours probably costs more being all
Yeah, it was
metal.
a little more expensive.
Yeah, and so I got mine from Amazon. He got his from rainharvest.com. So there's lots of different sources out there. Rainharvest.com, by the way, they had a lot of different parts and components. I hadn't run across them.
They're not the cheapest
previously.
site, but they've got a huge selection of different stuff. Nice tanks, all sorts of stuff.
They are a little pricey though.
Yeah.
I've got that same one. Works great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Goes
But it's
by
way bigger than what I needed to, what that is.
buy once, cry once.
Yeah, it's 4-inch square downspouts and stuff, but the hole, when I looked at it, it was basically the same, like 3-inch oval hole that you cut for a regular gutter anyway. I was like, well, oversize that. It's Texas. I gotta go there.
So the next step is a leaf heater. The first flush component. And so we've got all the leaves, we've got all the sticks and everything out. The first flush gets any pollen that gets through the leaf eater, any of the oils or contaminants or any other pollution that gets on the roof, any bird doo-doo, anything that gets on the roof, you're going to get a first flush of water that's going to bring it down. And usually the first 10 to 15 gallons of water rinses all that off, and then after that you have clean water. Well, you want to not have that go into your tank. And the first flush is a system that actually receives that and traps that water, and then diverts regular water over. So the way this system is right here, we come into the leaf eater, it comes straight down and it fills this tube up. And then once this tube is filled up, the vertical tube, we go horizontally off in the T connection there. And the way we prevent any floaters or anything else from coming up, in this case, there's a ball, and this is the kit right here that I ordered, the first flush kit. There's a ball that goes in, hooks up to this funnel. The funnel is put in upside down. The ball comes up and it clogs that funnel up. And so once the pipe is full, everything goes off the T, and that is clean water going that way. It automatically resets itself by having, you can see this little red thing here, it has a pinhole in it. That goes down at the bottom here, and you basically slowly leak water out, so it resets itself. So after about 45 minutes to an hour, this tank will slowly drain itself down, so you're all reset for the next first flush a week from now or whatever. This system cost me, again, another almost $35. I did a 3-inch tube. It's $32 for a 4-inch tube. But Tim has a cool system which he put together.
So hold on. So if the IBC gets filled, then it's going to go up and over that leaf eater to the right?
So not the IBC. It's once you hit the leaf eater first. You're coming from the gutter, going to the leaf eater, fill the tube up, and then once the tube is vertically filled up to this point, then you flow into your storage tank. In this case,
That's got overflow on the storage tank. Where does that go?
We have a separate slide for overflow on the storage, or overflow on the storage tanks, because that's done a lot of different ways.
Okay.
So I saw the first flush thing, but also on the rainwater harvesting, they talked about some other systems like this. I used the spreadsheet that Sean mentioned earlier to calculate how much rainwater I wanted to catch in the first flush. And in that same spreadsheet, it said if you have a 6-inch pipe, you need this much height. 4-inch pipe this much. So I just ran that calculation and figured out I can only get 4-inch at Home Depot. That was the widest pipe I could get. So I needed to do, I think it was almost 12 feet of pipe. So I had to tee it off. Otherwise I would have done just a straight drop and done it that way. So I'm getting 7.5 gallons in the 2 4-inch pipes. I've got a clean out on the bottom. So I found on the Magic YouTubes a video showing a guy doing a similar system. Basically, you just open up the cleanouts enough that it just dribbles out the bottom, and then you can open it up once in a while and clean out the sludge that it eventually collects in there too.
So what was the calculation for getting the pollen, or how much you needed to capture based on your roof square footage?
Capture is, the rule of thumb is for every 1,000 feet you need 10 gallons of first flush capture. So I was figuring I would get about a third or 2/3 of my roof I was capturing be about 750 gallons. So 7.5 gallons of catch.
It took 12 feet, huh?
Yeah, it was like
10 gallons per 1,000.
10 gallons per 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how much you did?
So then in the T, I've got a similar idea, but it's just a big enough water bottle. I bring it down from the 4-inch to the 3-inch, and that's enough of a neck down that the water bottle floats up into there and just stops it up. In the same method, but it's a Gatorade bottle I bought at Home Depot. I'm like, that's about, yeah, that's the right size. Okay, drink that.
So all in all, that was a little cheaper than my $35 solution.
But the piping was still, I guess, you had to buy the pipe too, so.
Yeah.
And then it just goes up, and there's a little more headspace there. It flows up and over, and I just matched everything together and made it fit as best as possible.
One thing on the first flush kit I've seen, I don't know if you've experienced it, but the self dripping nipple will get stopped up pretty quick with sludge.
Yeah. So the self cleaning or the self drip nipple here, here's where it comes out of. There's actually right here. There's a little filter right here that goes up over it, and there's also a second stainless steel piece that you can purchase for an additional like $10. That it goes on the outside of that, so you can double the filters up, and I did buy that, and I have not had any issues with clogging up. I can see where you would if you have a lot of debris and crap. I don't have a whole lot around.
You're gonna have to clean that
garage.
stainless steel at some point. Right?
Every year when I winterize it, I pull it all of this totally apart. It actually screws on the bottom here, so I can unscrew it and clean all the filters out, and so when I winterize it, everything's clean. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just go make sure if there's water dribbling out on the cinder blocks, and if there's not, I open it up. If it's empty, great. If it's not, then more comes out.
Now, can you point out where the green ball goes up? I'm guessing it's the far right fitting.
So The green ball is down at the bottom. As it fills up, it comes up to here.
So right
This,
below that.
this is like a
line.
funnel that you
Okay.
put right at the bottom of the tee. So
Got
the
it.
ball will never go any
Got it.
higher than the bottom of this tee right here. And once that happens, it clogs it up and it
Yeah.
sends everything out
Yeah.
horizontally.
I like that.
So
Yes.
did you just use one ball in yours? I'm sorry. He used a Gatorade ball.
I use the Gatorade.
Oh, that's right.
He used
That's right.
Gatorade ball.
Yeah. But only one thing I got.
Only one.
Right, his is used right here because he has 3-inch up above, 4-inch here.
Yeah, okay.
So he has kind of the same little funnel thing that I have. It's just he's going it with a, what do you call it?
Yeah,
Reducer.
reducer, yeah.
Yeah, reducer.
Well, what flavor of Gatorade?
It was the red one.
Good choice.
I'm not following the Gatorade.
Dribbles out. And it takes like
It was
45
just a
minutes
bottle that was
Yeah.
big
to get a
enough.
long
Instead
range
of having the
arm,
green ball
what prevents it
inside
from,
of the
Oh, it's just a
It's
float.
got the Gatorade
The float is
so it
okay.
goes up,
Float's
yeah.
Gatorade.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because I did mine
So
the
if it
exact
rains
same
for
way.
4 hours and your first flush tube is
Constantly filling so that you're diverting.
And you decide when you want to
Cap
mush
off,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
If all four of it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so real quick, Darren was asking about the first flush. What happens if it goes for 4 hours? And I'll add on to that. Let's say it stops for an hour, or let's say it stops for 20 minutes, and then it starts again. The whole point of the first flush is to get stuff that has sat on your roof for days or weeks. And if it's been raining for 4 hours, your roof is clean at that point. So you actually want it to go in your storage tank. And if it stops for 15, 20 minutes and then starts back up, that's still going to be clean. So it's going to fill up relatively quickly and go off to your storage tank. So that's all fine. What you don't want is for it to stay full or have to have somebody go out and empty it out. And then a week or two later, you forget to empty it or whatever, and you shoot all of the bird crap and pollen and all the other crap into your storage tank, because then it's in your storage tank and it's going to clog up your filtering system on down the line, if you have one on down the line. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, the actual storage components itself. So I'll start with the clear ones here and then I'll let you go. So this is an IBC Tote. IBC Tote stands for Intermediate Bulk Container. They come in 3 different flavors: 275 gallon, 300 gallon, and 330 gallon. What you want is food grade. They do have non-food grade. Plus, they also have food grade that people have used to put pesticides and stuff like that in. You want to make sure that it is a food grade container and that it was actually, it never had any elemental bad shit in it. So you can find these on Craigslist anywhere from $50 to $150. If somebody says that they have a whole bunch of IBC totes for $20, be suspicious. More than likely they are not food grade. You'll find them for $20, but they aren't. A lot of times they're not food grade.
Do you find they're always on Craigslist, or do you have to look for months?
They're on Craigslist.
They're on Craigslist.
Yeah,
Well,
they're
in
all the
our
time.
Dallas metro area, they're on Craigslist all over the place.
If you're anywhere in the Tennessee area, I get this same Craigslist through IFPDT, $45 for food grade every week. They got 275 gallons.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's new, they're like 200 and something.
I knew they were right around $300. Yeah.
But they're used so much. I mean, it's
Yeah, they
ridiculous.
can only use them once. That's
Yeah, for food grade.
Yeah.
So one thing to be aware of when you're purchasing them on Craigslist is there's 2 different thread types. Well, I've been told there's 3 types. So I've only run into 2 types. Let me go over that and then we'll let David discuss the 3rd type here. So there is a fine type, which is basically the standard 2-inch PVC type. You can just go to Home Depot and hook the standard PVC up to it. There's also a very, very coarse type, and I have seen a couple of these around, and they're called S60X6, and you can find adapters from jmesales.com/IBC Tote Tank Accessories. They have all the different accessories, and they do sell from this adapter over to the PVC. And then once you get to the PVC, then you can go to Home Depot. or
That's a
Lowe's.
European thread, since
Yeah.
those travel from all over the world. There's also a
I'm sorry, I forgot we're an international crowd here.
there's also a clamp style that goes on. So if you just don't order them blind without taking that bottom cap off, if you're planning on using that,
Yeah.
because more and more of the clamp style, because it's universal, and they can ship it overseas, and the clamp is the clamp is the clamp.
Yeah.
So
I would
they're,
say if
they're
you're gonna
becoming more
do
and
it-
more prevalent.
go get a 2-inch threaded adapter from Home
Take a
Depot and
female
go
adapter
go
with
when you go to get the tank, screw it in, and if
Yeah.
it doesn't work, get a different tank.
Well, and like there's three versions. So if there's fine threads on it, it's going to be the one that fits that.
Right.
The coarse thread one is very out. I've got the coarse and the fine. So I've got two different kinds.
Yeah, and there was one of each.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, and even the clamp-on one. I mean, you could do a hose clamp over the top of that.
Tractor Supply carries them.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
mean,
universal thread.
It's not a high pressure system. Not at this.
Or you can just get a bulkhead fitting and put in on the other side and put a real valve on it.
You good? Yep.
So you want to cover what you did for the
Let me cover this before we get into that. So the next size up that I've dealt with is the 1,550 gallon, and you can buy these from Tractor Supply for $1,000, $999.99. Make sure that it's food grade. You can find them on Craigslist. This particular one right here, I actually got 2 of these, both of them together for $450.
Wow. Nice.
On Craigslist. So this one had a crack, and I think you can see it right there. And the other one had a hole in it. And they sell something called a polyethylene torch, or I'm sorry, a polyethylene welder, which is nothing more than a big soldering iron. And basically you melt the polyethylene, you put some screen on it, and they give you some polyethylene, like solder, if you will, whatever, and you just melt it together. Make sure the screen is on, and mine has a hole down here at the bottom. As long as the screen is on the inside, I can make that thing as good as new. So I ended up walking away with 2 tanks for $450.
Crazy tape stuff.
Just on the tanks, just so I understand, because we use water. I mean, we just have rainwater tanks on all houses, just everywhere.
Okay.
And I know for my place, the sweet spot is about 6,000 gallons. I can get for $2.5 grand. So for 2,500, that's the sort of price point. If you go bigger, it takes up too much room on the truck, so they can't transport them as well. And you get smaller and smaller, and you pay more per litre or gallon and that kind of stuff. So that $1,000 for 1,500, when for $2 grand, so you don't have them.
So for $5,000 or $6,000, you can probably get something that's larger. I know Tractor Supply has all the way up to 15,000 gallon.
Well,
The issue is I can't fit that on my trailer and pull it behind me in my SUV. That would require me to get a truck, tractor trailer.
No, the 6,000 gallons I put on my car trailer.
Did you?
Yeah.
2,500 gallon will fit perfectly in the back of a full-size truck.
Yeah.
So it's
I'm
8
just
feet.
wondering about other
gallons are
or
about
price points and sizes.
So there are a lot of options. So the only ones I've ever seen on Craigslist are IBC totes and the 1,550 gallon. I have seen a couple that go on the back of trucks. I haven't seen any of the larger ones.
That's just
Yeah, so Home Depot has a 2,500 gallon black poly for $9.95. With your veterans discount, you get 10%.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they offer it in your area. So you just have to go online and look at it and see if they have it there. But that's the one. It's 8 feet by 8 feet by 8, 10 feet. So it's $900 after your discount.
So there's lots of different options out there.
Yeah.
So shop around.
I've seen online. I've seen one too where they use the steel culvert, and they just cut it off as high as they wanted, to get the gallons. They get a real big one,
What do you guys know about the clear versus black?
Yeah, so you mentioned
We're going to talk about that in 1 second. So if you notice, that's mine and that's mine, and there's a problem with mine.
Okay.
And Tim is about to talk about that.
Yeah, so obviously my wife chose the color. No, I think we had paint laying around from some other thing that we've done. Those bladders will pull out, so you just undo the top of the metal rack, and those bladders just pull out, especially when they're empty. They're super light. My wife and I, my wife is like $125 all day, so we just together pulled it out and painted it all. And just put a couple coats, make sure it's thick enough so it doesn't allow light to come through.
Right, UV.
Yeah. So that's to protect the plastic itself as well as prevent a bunch of algae. So if you are in full sunlight, you're going to have issues with algae in a tank. One of the clear white tanks.
If you're in any light, you're going to have algae in the tank.
Actually,
If it's
that is not the case, because this tank right here I ran this entire year, and I get sun from about 10 in the morning till about noon where it's at. So I get about 2 hours of sunlight a day, and it did okay. If you remember, I had 2 tanks side by side. I had one on the corner of the garage. So this one only gets 2 hours. The one on the corner gets about 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. That one is a green 1,550 gallon. I can't remember if it can. That one protects. So I ended up not having an algae issue this year. And my other one, I actually have a third one I'm going to put around the corner, and it's going to get no sunlight because it's on the north side. It's just totally protected. So I'm not going to have to paint mine. But if you are getting much more sunlight than that, you will.
So I had some 55 gallons chained together on the side of my house. There's another house 15 feet away. So the only sun they're going to get is when it's from here to here. And they grew algae like crazy.
Really?
So they got several hours of sun, but it could be water. Not all day. Could be what?
Did you have water? Depends on what ends up in your water.
No, I did not have a first.
So you had more
nutrient.
biomaterial.
Okay.
Yeah. And were they the white 55 gallon drums? Okay. Because we had on the old house we did the blue ones, but we also painted them.
I painted some and they were fine. The ones I didn't. But you're right. I was filling them with pollen.
So when I first figured out that algae was an issue, I already had them filled up, and I didn't want to be emptying them. So what I did is I just wrapped them in plastic, and I had some of that laying around. And what I did is I grabbed some of those fluorescent orange things that you tie, straps that you tie things down on a trailer. I just wrapped it around. You see it right there, and ratcheted it down. It lasted the whole season. Did great. One of the issues I had with painting it, and initially I said to paint it black, is if you paint these things black and you're sitting in the sun all day, you're boiling it, and you're gonna end up with hot water coming out. So that's another issue. So you want something?
I was just going to say, if you thought about putting an outdoor shower in.
I don't use 275 gallons for a shower.
You ain't treating yourself right.
You don't have a daughter, do you?
And I've seen them too where they do it inside the rack, where they've lined the rack with plastic instead of painting it.
That's what we did in Elijah Springs. We actually did the plastic and we wrapped the
bladder.
Tote itself in plastic, and then we put it back in the cage because they're easy to get out of the cage.
You can wrap it like a Christmas present.
Yep.
Put it back in.
Build something out of wood or whatever it might be on the inside of that rack, and keep the wood out, the light out, and all, and then paint that whatever color you want to, and it insulates it.
Yeah. We don't worry about that kind of thing.
Aren't the 2,500?
Yeah, lucky you.
Aren't the 2,500 gallon ones at Tractor Supply black?
Home Depot.
I mean Home Depot.
Yeah.
They're black.
Yeah, they're black. They're black poly.
So do you think that's a problem heat-wise?
They might for
I
rainwater.
don't think so. I mean, these things are like
They're pretty thick.
they're thick. I talked to a buddy of mine about it freezing. He says no. And I'm in Oregon, so it doesn't freeze like that anymore. Okay. Well, the plastic can handle the freeze. It'll expand it.
Okay, let's talk about a little bit of the bottom side plumbing. So on the top side, we talked about the gutter strainer, we talked about the leaf eater, we talked about the little Y piece to switch back and forth. We talked about the first flush and then dumping it off in the tank. We talked about tanks. Now we need to talk about the bottom side. Actually, we've got to talk about the top side a little bit more on your system.
Yeah, top side. So my overflow, I wanted to capture. Yep. I wanted to capture it. So I again just rough measuring and jury rigging. I basically have it coming into a cap. I found these caps at a local store that I searched on Craigslist. They were like in probably the worst part of my side of town, Dallas, over up at 30 by Mesquite there. But basically, it was one of the ones that has the screw off top. If I wanted to take the threads out, I could have just bored the threads out and had this fit tighter into it. But the 2-inch pipe fit pretty close, so I just put a whole crap load of silicone caulk on it and call it a day. So it comes down, it overflows, the IBC flows up into here and across to the other tank, same system, and then it overflows that when it's full and comes down. And I've got a ditch over here, so I'm going to extend I've got some pipe there. I kind of ran out of pipe, so I just used my the black tubing to run it the rest of the way into my ditch. So I've got a ditch behind the garage that goes out into the field.
So I did my overflow a little bit different. I basically just dropped the water into the tank, and it sits there very, very loosely. And I do my overflow on the bottom side. And you can see it right here. I come up, over, and
Water
down.
level.
Pardon me?
Water level.
Yes, and you go by water level. One key thing that you have to do, and I had several people, I have a YouTube video on this, I had several people make a comment that they had a huge rainstorm the night before and they came out and there was water all over the place, but the water system tanks were empty. If you get a gully washer, this will siphon everything out. So what you have to do is at the very top, just drill a couple holes in to allow some air to get in to break that siphon.
Wow.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought?
I had several different people comment on my YouTube video on this. So let's talk about a couple other things here. So bottom side plumbing, and this is why I have to totally drain everything and be very cautious. And I did not design this first system that great. Did you guys know that PVC explodes? It certainly does when it goes down into the 20s. And if you notice, I have one little area where, see that little trap right there? When I put this together, I did not think about it. Everything else is angled for freezing water and everything else. I cannot get water out of that. And I didn't realize that till the following spring. And I had just PVC all over the place. It literally exploded because we went down in the teens. So you have got to make sure that you don't have any traps like this. Everything's at an angle and that you can get the water out if you're going to go down. You're good to about 29 degrees. You get much lower in the 20s and especially in the teens, which I get on a regular basis, you have got to be able to drain water out of everywhere.
Do you have ball valves on either side of that trap?
So I have a ball valve right here, but the issue is everything was glued together, and once you get water in there, unless you vacuum it out, there's no way to get it out.
You can just do a T with a smaller.
Well, so I totally redesigned this, and I actually ended up putting the 1,500 gallon tanks in, and I redesigned the entire bottom part better. I moved to entirely 4-inch on the bottom. I feed 2-inch into the 4-inch because I'm going to be tying multiple 1,500 gallons together, and just so I can get the pressure and everything else out of it.
Will it still freeze if you put insulation on it?
Yes. So the question is, will it still freeze if you put insulation on it? And yes, the only way that I'm at 19 degrees, I'd have to go down about 24 to 30 inches. Probably not quite that far, but further than what it is.
The water's not moving, it's going to freeze.
Yeah. So I'd have to go too far down even with insulation, so it's not going to help. So some of the things I did with my newer system was I put the quick disconnects in, same thing that you have on a pool system where you can disconnect things and work maintenance on it, and I put on the ball valve. So anywhere I have a tank, I have a ball valve on the outside and a quick disconnect so that I can remove the tank, perform maintenance on it, I can isolate the system. I have several different ball valves throughout, shut-offs, disconnect, quick disconnects, whatever you want to call it. That makes it for easy adding and doing any kind of maintenance that you may end up with if anything gets clogged. I recently found out that I had a chipmunk get into my 2-inch pipe and he's been taking stuff in. So I've been blocking everything from the top side, and I had one spot I missed on the bottom side. So yeah, that caused me to have to break the system apart and flush that part out.
They make a union for it's 2-inch, which is what the most of those bottom bungs are.
Yeah.
So they make a union with a ball valve built into it, and that's nice because you can close it, take the union off, and work on everything on the other side with the tank being full.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
What about the overflow on the big poly tank? How did you configure that?
Exactly the same as I did on this. It's just because the
You went all the way
IBC
up to
totes are
18?
about here.
Yeah.
The poly tank is about
All right.
6 foot.
Well, I'm not going to do that.
So
mine goes in at the side, so what I was thinking about doing is it comes
So
down.
how
and
many
then-
poly tanks are would you be doing of the
Just
big
one.
ones? If you're doing just one, most of them come with a bulkhead adapter up high, and you can just use that for your overflow. The reason I can't do that is I'm tying multiple together.
I just have one hole at the top going in at the side, not at the top. So I think the only way I can do it is rainwater comes in, tees into there, and then I'll have to tee up, and then that'll be my overflow right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So you're going in the hole you're talking about is the overflow.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
With yours, don't forget to the tank's gonna be vented.
There is a vent at the top.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could easily just add where you're going in, just add, like you say, a T connector and make that
T going up
overflow
to the
as well.
top a couple inches or something like that, and then have it go directly down into Neverland.
Yeah, I didn't want to do an overflow for every single tank I was putting in. I wanted one overflow, so I built this system because I'm going to be adding multiple tanks, and I'm built mine to be expandable.
Yeah, and I just
But
figured
the way you're talking about, absolutely.
I just figured on mine I'd go across the top. I'm not as worried, and I'm not as worried about it freezing. And I could put another 3 or 4 towards the edge of the garage on that side too, and capture the other downspout and tie it in same way. And I raised them up, so they're up 4 courses of cinder blocks. They're about this high at the bottom. And I put just some bigger patio block that we had underneath that because the base there is pea gravel, about 4 or 5 inches of pea gravel. So it's not really compacted yet. It will be this fall for sure.
Okay, let's talk about pressurizing. He has the best pressurizing system on the slide.
Because it's high.
It's gravity. No external power.
Yeah.
If you need power, let's see, the first system I did was for my father-in-law. He's running uphill to water fruit trees. He has only one IBC tote, and we came up with this cast iron transfer, we put in 3/4 inch hose connection so you can directly connect a hose to it. The issue with that is this is constantly on, so when it's plugged in, it's constantly pumping, and you're going to burn the pump up if you're not letting water through. So what we had to do on the outside is put a Y connector in and take and run some of it back into the top of the IBC tote just so water was constantly going and we didn't burn the pump. And then he didn't get quite as much pressure on the hose coming out. So you don't want to have a pump like this that's plugged in and let it cavitate and just burn it out.
I hope I don't steal your thunder, but my father-in-law had a shallow well pump sitting in his garage that he wasn't using.
Yeah.
So I hook that guy up, and that guy comes with a little solenoid pressure switch. So I just leave it on all the time, and when I open my hose,
Well, talk about stealing.
Did I steal your thunder? I'm sorry.
That would be this one right here.
Yeah, okay.
This actually I bought on Amazon, and it goes into an RV or a camper. They sell a 12-volt system and a 120-volt system, so that's a 120-volt system. And exactly what you say. So if you let go of the hose and you're not running anything, as soon as you press the hose, it turns itself on, builds up enough pressure, and I'm amazed. I shot it out, and it went a good ways. So it builds up a good bit of pressure, and that was like $100 and some odd bucks. It was actually cheaper than this one. So there are other options out there. And then my $1,200 option up here, which costs more than everything else together, but I run a nursery business. I need high pressure all the time. Even if power goes out, I need it at least to go a couple hours because I'm running a mist irrigation system, and I cannot afford for water to be out for more than about 5 or 10 minutes. That pressure tank will keep me up for a good hour or so if I lose power in the middle of summer, as well as, you can't see it, but I have additional filters over here because with the mist irrigation system, I can't have any debris, any junk, any crap whatsoever in there at all, even microscopic stuff.
That's that 1 micron 20-inch sort of.
Yeah.
And then you put shark fittings on it too. That's my process to try.
I hired a local plumber to come in and do it. When I can do the outside plumbing and PVC. When you get into this kind of stuff, and I don't mess with that.
So that runs without electricity.
This will run with. This requires electricity.
But the pressure tank.
The pressure tank. So what the pump does is it pumps and it gets enough water in there to run my mist irrigation system for, like I say, over an hour without
The
electricity.
pressure tank is like a pressure bladder.
Yeah.
So I put a 1 gallon one on top of that pump, so it's not going on, off. Instead, it goes on, and then it goes off.
What's the PSI on? Did you have that set? Just curious.
It's 40.
Okay.
It's 40 PSI, and that's, I think, a 25-gallon pressure tank, which, like I say, we calculated it out, and that will give me an hour without power. Where my farm is in West Virginia, we lose power at least once a week, but usually it's never more than a half an hour. So
Throughout the
that
year.
will work fine for me.
Why do you lose power once a week?
People aren't paying their bills anymore.
I am out, I'm out in BF, and it's just
Trees,
Trees, drunk
somebody
drivers.
sneezes.
Yep.
Roll blackouts because
We lose our power in the winter.
The cold
when it's
train.
raining and it's windy, and we lose it for a week. And
So for me, it was worthwhile because I have a business that is relying.
yeah,
This is not something I would recommend for somebody who just wants to water it down.
With that one, just as an idea, I know that you've got the pressure tanks where you run them all the time. It's exactly the same as that. It makes perfect sense. But if you've got a nursery or something to run and you've got power issues, you can probably just run a little header tank up. You put like what else? I don't know what size, but even all the odd IBC. But if you put that up on the stand,
Yeah.
and then while your pump's going, and that gives you just that extra buffer up there.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. But like I say, normally we're never out longer than a half an hour, and that gives me an hour. So I'm
40
double what
40 PSI is not enough.
But that's probably good for people on solar and that as well, because during the day you can be pumping your water.
Well, as I expand and need more water, then yeah, that's an excellent idea.
the problem with that's going to be you're not going to have enough pressure for the misters. You're going to have to put it up to have enough pressure for the misters.
what's the power requirement on the inline pump?
Which one? This one?
No, the green.
This one?
Green.
Oh, that one. That is. I am 110. Yeah. So at the time, I only had 110 volts in my garage, so that actually 220 was cheaper, but I didn't have 220 in the garage.
Is that like a half horsepower?
Pardon me?
Is that like half horsepower? Is that like a half
I'm
horsepower?
really not sure.
Yeah.
Actually, a 12 volt version too. Once you run off your batteries without an inverter, it's more efficient than doing solar.
So, Sean, you're planning a house.
I'm doing that in the basement. I got two 1,850 gallon direct burial cisterns that we buried. So I'm not worried about freezing because we are in a freeze area. The bottom of the tank's about a foot above the bottom of the floor in the basement. So it's going to self-feed into the basement, into the pump. I'm going to pressurize it, filter it, have a water meter, a small one, just to see what I'm doing.
Yeah, what I used to do, I muscle it out, so you get like 3 rows, and I cut them long way.
The house, the way we're plumbing it, everything's home run to a manifold system. So starting off, I want to do all the toilets and the washing machine off the rainwater. We're on county water. We're on sandstone, so we can't do a well. It's a 50-50 shot, so that's why we had county water. So if something happened really bad, if the water was bad or quit, I can still use this if I had to. Because the rest of the house has a big filter system with chlorine and fluoride take out, plus all the microns. So we can just, it's a matter of this manifold system, switching some valves around and let it do that, and you've got the whole house.
That's awesome right there.
And those cisterns about $1 a gallon. It's the best I could find. They were, for 3,700 gallons, it was about $3,800 shipped from Nebraska to Indiana.
So my dad lives in Wisconsin, and he bought an old historical house, like a 1870 historical house. And in the basement, there was probably about a 6,000 gallon, just walled off cistern. And I just keep on going back to, why the heck aren't we still doing this? Like, building it into the houses. I'm going to build a new house. I'm going to have rainwater catchment. I'll probably have it outside, but why wouldn't you capture everything you possibly can up here?
Well, that said though, 2 counties away, it's illegal. They'll write you up and they'll throw you in jail.
Yeah, you don't own that water.
What's
wrong with you?
That's our water.
The guy that's growing the cucumber that's 80% water and selling it to you, that's his water.
Matter of fact, one I know for sure, he has a barn with the downspout into some half-cut barrels for his cows. And the tax assessor was there, and he's like, "Oh, you can't do that." And they wrote him up.
Yeah, you can walk for freedom, baby, from the Tennessee.
Okay, some other resources for you here. So, Brad Lancaster. He has volume 1 and volume 2 out. Awesome stuff. But volume 3 is the one that talks about what we were talking about today. And I don't know why, but he wrote on his webpage he's not going to publish that until spring of 2019. He said he has an ISBN number for it. He knows how many pages it is, so obviously it's written, but he's not going to release it until 2019. So by that point, I will have built enough of these. I won't be buying.
You got to write your own book,
right? So I have a YouTube channel. By the way, if you
if
go to YouTube and you search GreatEscapeFarms.com, all of the systems I built up here, I have YouTubes on putting it together. Every piece that I put together, what I did, why I did it, and everything.
Do you have a YouTube of your father-in-law's house where you're showing the water coming out the bottom of the first flush? Because I think I may have seen that. It's like the first rain, and you're showing the water come out of the little black nozzle.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I've seen that. Yeah. When you said father-in-law, I'm like,
yeah. His was the one with the red barn, the single IBC code. I actually did his first.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, quick question. Have either of y'all ever built one? Because on both those were metal buildings, so that the gutter's flush. Like my garage, I got like a 3-foot overhang. So when I just kind of got the pipe dangling right now into the. Y'all have any idea of how, like, a good way to brace that?
Well, I would actually just take those flexible fittings.
That's what I got right now,
bring it
but it's
to
just
the
kind of
house
like
and
dangling off the gutter. So if I got a full gutter, water, I'm just worried, you know.
I can draw
Especially
what I
with
did.
the first flush system, kind of like how you got it on bricks. They got all that weight, just kind of.
No, yeah, well, that's what I mean. I would bring it.
What I did.
I've got that exact same situation at my house, and what we did was when you come off the gutter, 45 it, you bring it past 45 back down, and that's where you.
That's what I was wondering if that would be the most efficient way to do it.
And if you're worried about it getting plugged, just go bigger in that section.
What I did is I just ran a 3-inch pipe all the way to the ground, put a T on the ground, that's sitting on a cinder block, and it's got a cleanout plug.
Yeah.
So that's basically my first flush for that side of the house.
Itself.
Yeah, the PVC comes all the way around. Just a straight pipe.
So now when the water comes in, you typically don't want to just drop it from the top. You want to plumb it down to like a cinder block or something at the bottom of it so it goes out, so it keeps from stirring up the sediment every time it rains.
Well, if your water, you're talking about the water in the actual. Once you got water in there, all your sediment's at the bottom. So.
Right, but when it comes in, if say it can still stir it up, if you run down and hit something to do that, it's supposed to keep it from.
If you're like all the way empty, but if you're not all the way empty, it's just going to hit the water on it. It's like half full.
Your own float valve.
So if anybody wants a business card, I have, like I say, I have a YouTube channel with a whole bunch of this. I'll just lay business cards here, and you guys can grab them.
Is this a PDF or a PowerPoint?
This is PowerPoint. I can make it a PDF.
Actually, will you type something in to that slide right there?
Sure.
Apropedia.org. That's where you go to apropedia.org and search rainwater harvesting calculations. Your first flush system, Apropedia, APPROPEDIA, like appropriate technology, Wikipedia. Apropedia.org is where all the calculations are, as well as a link to the Google spreadsheet, or Google Docs spreadsheet, where you can put in monthly usage, monthly rainwater, and it'll tell you how much storage you need to never run out.
And it has the first flush calculation.
Also, like I say, cards are here. If anybody wants a copy of this presentation, go ahead and email me. I'll just send it
I'd like a card, but I can't reach it from here. Could you help me, please?
Sure.